Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alyson Grange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global south. Join me every weekday live on Firstpost. Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alyson Grange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. Thousands flee the central Syrian city of Homs as rebel fighters push their lightning offensive in another city against President Bashar al-Assad's forces. Moscow says it is ready to use any means to ensure there is no strategic defeat in the Ukraine war. It comes days after Russia launched a new hypersonic missile at Ukraine. Protesters gather outside South Korea's National Assembly demanding President Yoon Suk-yeol's arrest after his recent martial law declaration, while lawmakers inside demand his arrest. China warns the United States to cease meddling in Taiwan-related affairs after the self-ruled island's president, Lai Ching-te, said he was confident of deeper cooperation with the upcoming Trump administration. Iran successfully launches its heaviest space payload, which includes a satellite and a space tug, using a domestically developed satellite carrier. Hello and welcome. Let's take a look at our top story. Our top focus remains on the growing crackdown of the West African juntas on foreign mining firms. Yesterday, we told you how Niger has taken over a French uranium mine, and now neighboring Mali wants the CEO of a Canadian gold mining firm arrested. A Malian court has issued an arrest warrant for Mark Bristow, the chief executive officer of the Canadian company Barrick Gold. He has been accused of money laundering and violating financial regulations. Last month, 4 senior Malian employees of Barrick Gold were also charged and detained. Now the Canadian firm Barrick Gold owns one of the world's largest gold mines along with the Malian state. It is the open-pit Lolo Gunko site in the country's west. The Canadian firm owns 80%, with Mali retaining the balance 20%. The Mali court has also signed another warrant for the Malian managing director of the gold mining complex. The exact charges against the Canadian firm are not known, but earlier the CEO, Mark Bristow, had said that the dispute is about Mali's share of the economic benefits generated by the complex. The arrest warrant for Bristow comes as Mali's military government, led by General Assimi Goïta, who seized power in 2020, increases pressure on foreign miners. The junta seeks to increase their control of the country's lucrative mineral sector. Mali is a resource-rich country, but the most exploited natural resource is gold. Mali is among the top 3 gold producers in Africa and among the top 20 gold producers in the world. The country accounts for 2% of the global gold production. Gold mining provides a quarter of its national budget and around 10% of the total economic output. Despite this, Mali, which is reeling from a growing Islamist insurgency, remains one of the poorest countries in the world. So the military leaders now want a tighter grip on the country's natural resources. Last year, Mali adopted a new mining code, which allows the state to take a stake of up to 30% in new ventures. The reform also abolished tax exemptions granted to companies during the mining process. In line with these reforms, Mali announced a series of decrees this week, increasing the state's stake in the various gold and lithium mining ventures. For example, Mali will take a 30% stake in the British Bougouni and the Chinese Golamina lithium mines in the country's south. Mali will also increase its stake up to 30% in 2 Canadian gold mines in the country's west and south. Increasing stake is not the only way that Mali is asserting its control. As per reports, Mali is seeking approximately $500 million in unpaid taxes from Barrick Gold, the firm whose CEO it once arrested. In fact, the detention of the foreign officials is becoming a pattern in Mali. Last month, Mali arrested the CEO and 2 employees of the Australian firm Resolute Mining. The firm has now agreed to pay $160 million in fines to free its employees. This crackdown on foreign firms in West Africa coincides with the junta's strategic pivot toward Russia and away from the former colonial rule of France and other traditional Western allies. Earlier this year, Mali's military government officially entered into an agreement with Russia for gold refinery project in Bamako. The deal, which spans 4 years, includes the construction of a refinery capable of processing a substantial 200 tons of gold annually. So the military leaders in West Africa are going ahead with their strategy of forging new alliances. How will the West react to all of these setbacks? For more on this, we have with us Patrick Bond, Distinguished Professor at the University of Johannesburg, who is joining us live from Johannesburg, South Africa. Thank you for being with us.
Good to be back with you, Alyson.
Now, what are the key issues underlying the dispute between Mali's military government and Barrick Gold? And how does this reflect the broader tensions with the foreign mining firms that are operating in the country?
Yes, it's a problem not just in Mali. Of course, sovereignty and control over a non-renewable resource, one that is depleting, so it's wasting. And unless you capture the revenues and you reinvest, and you do that sensibly, as a government, well, as we see where I am speaking from, Johannesburg, where we had half the world's historic gold at one point, the result, if you don't do that, if you don't reinvest, is a city, a country that falls apart. Right now, our water system, from where I'm talking about, doesn't even work at night. And those are the sorts of dilemmas that anyone, not just in Mali, but across the continent, has to face. And this is quite an extreme step to say that Mark Bristow himself from South Africa, who made his wealth and put together Rand Gold here in Johannesburg, now he's facing arrest. And in some ways, this sort of threat, Barrick knows it well from having also suffered the same in Tanzania under the then President John Magufuli in the late 2010s. Well, they may have to pay up because there's a fairly good chance that, like most mining companies, they take out far more than they should, and they don't reinvest in the society's welfare.
Right, and Professor, since the 2020 coup, Mali's military rulers have emphasized a fairer distribution of mining revenue. What concrete steps have been taken to achieve this? And how do these policies compare to other resource-rich African nations?
Well, some of the policies are really avant-garde. They're at the cutting edge, such as saying, we're going to keep our gold here, not just ship out the ore. We want to smelt it here. And that's why the Russian smelter may be an important advance. The big challenge for smelters, as we've seen in South Africa, where we ran out of electricity because of so much smelting. Do you have enough power to do that, especially in Bamako? And those questions about, let me call it a resource nationalism. Can you take the natural resources that the current and also, don't forget, future generations really will rely upon, and ensure that you're getting fair value? The African mining vision has been the main route to being able to do that, but it's come under a lot of criticism. First, that it hasn't worked. Second, that it still relies on foreign mining capital, and that's the big dilemma. If you want to take your resources out of the ground today, you may need the very big machines, the technology, the markets, the know-how that for example, a Canadian company, Barrick, has. However, if you're patient and you say, well, gold, unfortunately, because we don't really trust our currencies, It will always be a value. The value of gold soaring in recent years as India and China and Russia have really built up their central bank reserves of gold instead of the dollar. It really is an important asset to ensure you're keeping it in the ground for future generations if, as we see, you can't stop the illicit financial flows and all the various means of cheating that many multinational corporates are so expert in.
Yes. And the arrest warrant for Barrick Gold's CEO marks a significant escalation, and it's not the first time a move like this has been made. What are the potential implications of moves like this for Mali's mining sector? And then, of course, its relationship with international investors.
But, there have been a couple of governments in Africa, not just these West African coup governments that are getting very tough on not only their multinational corporates, but they're also very tough governments. They're having a hard time in some cases with instability, partly because of the Islamic rebellions in parts of especially Mali. And what we saw with John Magufuli, although he died of COVID in 2022, what he had done was actually probably useful. He scared Barrick and also in the process scared a lot of other mining companies. And I think it's raised the question of transparency. We have a Publish What You Pay network in civil society and extractive industries transparency initiative. They haven't done all that well. And maybe at some point it does take the threat of an arrest and prosecution by a government like Mali's to wake up these companies and say, well, maybe you shouldn't be taking out quite so much and pay back the money.
Right. Professor, as always, great to have you on the show. Thank you for your valued insights and analysis there.
Thank you, Alyson.
Shifting focus to the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Eastern DRC is on edge again as fighting has intensified between the army and the M23 rebels. The DRC army is now fighting the Rwanda-backed M23 rebels. It has been for years. In August of this year, a ceasefire deal was signed between both sides, which was mediated by Angola. However, since for the last 4 days, the two sides have been engaged in fierce clashes. Fighting has erupted in the North Kivu province, which is the epicenter of the conflict. Rebels want to seize the capital Goma, and the recent clashes took place in Lubero territory, which is the M23's operational theatre. Fighting also took place in the Masisi area of the province. Local authorities say that several displaced people began flocking to areas away from the combat zone. The M23 rebels are a part of the March 23 movement, which was formed in 2012. They are fighting DRC army for the interests of the Tutsis, the ethnic group which was subject to a brutal genocide by the ethnic Hutus in neighboring Rwanda in 1994. The rebels want to control the mineral-rich eastern DRC. After years of dormancy, they relaunched fighting in 2021 and have now seized large swathes of territory. Neighboring Rwanda is accused of supporting the rebels. Rwanda is often accused of backing the group with its own troops and weapons. Rwanda, which is led by President Paul Kagame, who was born in a Tutsi family, denies this. However, the UN experts have said that Rwanda does have between 3,000 and 4,000 troops deployed in eastern Congo. Rwanda has so far called it as a defensive measure. It accuses the Congo of fighting alongside a Hutu rebel group, which has attacked Tutsis in both countries. Angola, which is mediating the conflict between the neighbors, in August brokered a fragile truce that stabilized the situation on the front line. But since the end of October, the M23 has been on the march again. Despite violations of the ceasefire, the DRC and Rwanda are maintaining diplomatic dialogue. On the 25th of November, the two countries agreed on terms and conditions of the disengagement of those Rwandan forces. However, with the latest clashes, it appears that these terms are not being respected. The two sides will meet again in Angola on the 15th of December to advance the peace talks. However, the fragile truce agreements have so far failed to solve the crisis in the DRC, which has killed and displaced several civilians. Now, the resource-rich African nation continues to suffer due to instability and violence that's being created by the conflict. For our next story, we shift our focus to the Republic of Ghana. The West African nation will vote on Saturday to pick its next president. The presidential candidates and their parties rallied thousands of supporters across the country for their final campaigning before what is being predicted as a tightly contested election. On the one side, the ruling New Patriotic Party, or the NPP candidate, the current vice president, Mahamudu Bawumia, and on the other is the former president and opposition NDC party's flag bearer, John Mahama. Now, the two candidates are vying to succeed President Nana Akufo-Addo, who is stepping down at the end of 2 terms. The ruling NPP's candidate, Mahamudu Bawumia, is aiming to step into the president's shoes after 8 years as vice president. But the biggest challenge for him is a wave of anti-incumbency. The collapsing economy has tarnished his and his party's reputation. His biggest poll promises to create a digital economy with skills and training for 1 million youth in the country, and setting up of innovation hubs to support tech entrepreneurs. He says that the goal is to put a dent in the unemployment rate.
When you come to the macro economy, what is clear is that notwithstanding the challenges we've had, we have performed better than the government of John Dramani Mahama across.
No party in Ghana has ever won more than 2 consecutive terms since the country restored democracy in 1992. But the ruling NPP says it is determined to break this pattern by ensuring that it wins parliamentary and Bawumia in the presidency. Now, standing against him is the NDC's Mahama, who, much like America's Donald Trump, is hoping to make his way back into power. His campaign promise is to reset the economy. He says he will transform Ghana into a 24-hour economy with nighttime jobs in both public and private sectors. He has also promised to scrap some taxes to ease the cost of living crisis. Mahama also aims to make history by becoming Ghana's first Muslim president. But when Mahama was in office from 2014 to 2017, his government faced several corruption allegations, which led him to the failing to win a second term in 2017. He, however, dismissed them as politically motivated. Now, critics also raised doubts over his promises on the economy, and this is because Ghana plunged into an electricity crisis when he was in power.
It is a defining moment for our nation. It is a choice between the Ghana we have today and the Ghana we want together. A Ghana of opportunity, prosperity, and justice for all. Our young people deserve to live in a Ghana where their voices are heard and their dreams can become reality. And this is why I'm committed to waging a relentless war on corruption. Operation Return All the Loot. This operation will be implemented with dedicated zeal to retrieve the stolen monies and properties for our country's development and for the benefit of our young people.
At the heart of the 2024 election is Ghana's worst economic crisis. In 2022, Ghana plunged into a deep economic turmoil, and the situation continues to remain dire. Now, that year, the government defaulted on its debt repayments. International rating agencies downgraded Ghana's rating to junk status, and inflation skyrocketed to 54%. Public debt was at 72.3%, and the currency lost 70% of its value in the last 8 years. Now, this forced Ghana to secure a $3 billion bailout from the IMF. Since then, price rise in the country has been at its fastest rate in over 2 decades. Ghanaians have been hit hard in the pocket, with prices of essentials skyrocketing. Eggs and tomatoes were more than twice as expensive in February of 2024 as compared to the previous year. Now, other Ghanaian favourites also shot up and wages could not keep pace.
We actually need people or somebody who can tackle the very fundamentals of our economy, the unemployment, the inflation, the devaluation of our city. So this is the kind of person we need as a leader, and that is what has informed my decision to actually cast my vote coming Saturday.
The next 4 years, I'm hoping to see Ghana in a higher place. Now, there's no need for us even to be traveling. Ghana will be like any other place in the world, a better place for we Ghanaians to live in, to feel comfortable. I know Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is going to do that for us.
From today up to the election year, if they give me fertilizer, I'm going to vote for them again, for the MPP. If they give me that fertilizer to pull my farms, I'm going to vote for them. But if I didn't get it, I know they don't want to do it. So I will change my heart.
The economic difficulties in the country were also accompanied by the rising unemployment rate. 2 decades ago, 1 in 20 Ghanaians able to work were unemployed. That estimate now stands at 1 in 7. More than half of the population, around 24 million people, are under the age of 35. So the young people have been hit hard. The unemployment rate in 2023 was at 14.7%. For 15 to 24-year-olds, the unemployment rate is twice the overall figure. Nearly 30% of them are without a job. Now, gold is a big foreign exchange earner for the West African country. In 2023, gold exports amounted to $5.2 billion. The country is also rich in oil, gas, diamonds, bauxite, and lithium. Ghana is also a key player in the global cocoa market, being the world's second largest supplier. For the last 3 decades, Ghana has seen a series of closely fought but peaceful elections. This year, too, Ghanaians are hoping for a smooth transfer of power to ensure their country retains its reputation of a stable democracy in a region hit by coups, constitutional challenges and insurgencies. NDC's Mahama has already said that he won't accept the election results if they are not transparent and fair. So, will Ghana retain its title of the bastion of democratic stability in West Asia? We expect to find out this within 3 days of the December 7th presidential election. In Kenya's Taita Taveta County, a growing elephant population and increasing human encroachment have made coexistence a big challenge. Troubled by elephant attacks, farmers in this Kenyan county are protecting their crops with an innovative hack, which is by pitting these giant African mammals against tiny honeybees. They say it helps them ensure a peaceful coexistence. Our next report gets you the details.
Coexisting has always been a feature of nature. Humankind has always lived side by side with nature, whether it's with plants or with animals. But today, we get you an interesting story from Kenya, which has redefined the idea of coexistence. In the East African country city of Voi, which is located in the Taita Taveta County, the growing elephant population and increasing human encroachment have made coexistence a big challenge. Clashes between humans and elephants have become frequent. The elephant population has grown from around 6,000 in the mid-1990s to almost 15,000 elephants in 2021 in Tsavo, according to the Kenya Wildlife Service. However, that has also coincided with the region's human population growth, which has settled on lands that were once grazing and migration routes for the elephants. While the tourists love the huge mammals, they are loathed by farmers who are concerned by the destruction caused to their crops by the elephants. This is Charity Mwangome, a farmer in the region. The 58-year-old has seen the elephants frequently destroy months of her hard work in the fields. So to counter these mighty giants, she turned to the tiny ones. Farmers in the region began using honeybees, who the elephants fear, to protect their crops.
We used to hate elephants a lot until we got the beehive fences that have made us learn to coexist with them. We are now getting a good harvest from the enclosed portion of the farm fenced by the beehive fence. When an elephant approaches the fence and senses the presence of bees, they keep off and take an alternative route.
But this is not something that Mwangome came up with by herself. She was introduced to this by a conservation organization called Save the Elephant. The organization has been running a project where they advise farmers to protect their crops using beehive fences. And these fences now protect several local plots in the region.
When there are crops inside the farm, where the farm has been fenced with the beehives, you find that when the elephants approach the farm and they would like to raid, they normally push the wire like this, and you find that the hives will shake, the bees will come out, and the bees will attack the elephants around the ears and the trunk. And another thing is that once the elephants hear the sound of the bees and the smell, they run away.
Some of the farmers have found the honeybees to be extremely helpful. They have in many ways been able to protect their livelihood and fund their children's education.
I depend a lot on these bees. When it rains, I get a good harvest and thus money for food and school fees. The bees therefore help me a lot in this farm by providing security for my crops. And after harvesting honey, I also get money to pay for school fees.
Save the Elephant's local project coordinator Ewan Brenner believes this initiative has worked positively and surprised many with its results in Kenya. It has been able to hack the interaction and dynamics between elephants and honeybees and has been able to provide a nature-based solution to the problem rather than an artificial human-made solution. This in turn has relieved the often stressed farmers who now don't mind peacefully coexisting with the giant elephants.
And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again at the same time on Monday. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend and goodbye.